went to college in Philadelphia. So as you can imagine, this year the Super Bowl was a big celebration. For many fans, watching football is about the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, tracking their team's wins and losses throughout the season. But for someone like me, someone who studies concussions, I see more. I also see the injuries. And one day that sticks out for me is December 22nd. Jalen Hurts, the Eagles' star quarterback, suffered a concussion in a game against the Washington Commanders. First, he hit his head off the ground. Then he took another hit, this time directly to his head. He got up and gave the thumbs up that he was okay, but the officials weren't convinced. They had him removed from play, and he underwent a sideline concussion evaluation. Thanks to the extensive medical care available to professional athletes like Jalen Hurts, he was carefully monitored and cleared to return in time for playoffs and for the Super Bowl. But what you won't see on TV is a law enforcement officer experiencing the same type of injury in a car crash. Just like Jalen Hurts, he may think he's okay, but here's the difference. While professional athletes have immediate access to athletic trainers, team physicians, and specialists guiding their recovery, law enforcement officers don't have access to the same resources. And in many cases, they still have to finish their shift. But why should those who protect us receive less care than those who entertain us? And the car crash is just one example of how a law enforcement officer may sustain a concussion. Did you know that at least 30% of law enforcement officers sustain one or more concussions while on the job? This may not be surprising considering their high-risk nature of the job, and this starts even before they're on the job. It can start as early as the training academy. Let's say, for example, I start my career as a cadet in the Corrections Academy. I undergo defensive tactics training, which is designed to prepare me for my future job duties, but it also exposes me to repetitive head impacts, which can lead to concussions. Then let's say I go on to work in the jails. Everything around me is concrete and metal. I jump in to break up a fight, but hit my head off the wall. Another risk of sustaining a concussion. Then let's say I advance in my career and now I'm working on patrol. There's the car crash again, or perhaps I sustain a concussion from trying to restrain a non-compliant offender. Let's say I end my career in a tactical unit, like on the SWAT team. I may be exposed to repetitive low-level blasts, or sometimes blasts that aren't even that low level. Let's say, for example, I throw a flashbang, but it bounces off the door and ricochets back at my feet where it goes off. Boom. From as early as the training academy, law enforcement officers are exposed to experiences and environments that place them at a high risk of sustaining concussions. And these concussions can have lasting impacts on their health, performance, and overall well-being. While we often acknowledge that concussions exist, do we really know what it feels like to experience one? In the short term, concussions can cause headaches, sensitivity to light and noise, difficulty concentrating, just to name a few. Now imagine working as a law enforcement officer experiencing these symptoms. What happens when you need to make a split-second decision? When you need to assess a threat? Their ability to perform their job safely and effectively is compromised. And the long-term effects can be even more concerning. In the long term, concussions can increase risks for mental health problems like depression and PTSD. So this isn't just about job performance. It's about protecting the overall well-being of those who protect and serve our community. Let's go back to the officer in the crash. Right now, there's no standard education or access to medical care available in most agencies. So that officer may not recognize his symptoms as those of a concussion, or may view concussion only as a minor injury. So he doesn't seek treatment. He returns to duty too soon. Now imagine that same officer on patrol a few days later, responding to a high-stress call at night with lights flashing and sirens blaring. His head is pounding. He's sensitive to light and noise. He struggles to concentrate. His safety and the safety of those around him are at risk. We must do better. Law enforcement officers need access to the same type of resources available to professional athletes. That's why our team created the first in the nation return to duty protocol tailored to law enforcement officers. I'm part of Ohio State's School of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences and Ohio State's Chronic Brain Injury Program, and our team is dedicated to improving concussion management for law enforcement officers across the nation. With our protocol, here's what should happen. Education as early as the training academy so that future officers can recognize their signs and symptoms as those of a concussion. Removal from duty. Unlike on the sports field, it's not always possible to remove an officer from duty at the moment that they sustain an injury, but as soon as is safely possible after that. Then 1 to 2 days of light activities and gradually increasing both their physical and cognitive activities as their symptoms allow. Then, when their symptoms have resolved at rest, returning to work but with symptom-based limitations. For example, that patrol officer, maybe he needs to ride along with a partner for a day or two to make sure that the job doesn't provoke his symptoms. And then when an officer feels like he's ready to get back, medical clearance by a healthcare provider. With this protocol, we can ensure that officers are returned to duty without compromising their safety or their effectiveness. We started today with a story of Jalen Hurts, a professional athlete with an entire medical team, ensuring his safe recovery before return to play. But law enforcement officers who sustain similar injuries in the line of duty don't get the same support. That needs to change. Even with limited resources, we can do better. By prioritizing concussion education, medical evaluation, and a structured return to duty protocol, we could bridge this gap in care. And we owe it to the men and women who put their lives on the line to protect us. Concussions are often silent struggles, invisible to those who don't know what to look for. But their impact is undeniable. To the law enforcement organizations, healthcare providers, and policymakers, this is our opportunity to step up. The solutions exist, but now we must act. Because protecting those who protect us isn't just the right thing to do, it's our responsibility. It's time to stop treating concussions as just an athlete's issue. They're also a public safety issue. Thank you.